Before we get started, obviously, I think the most important thing is to
naturally.
I know that where you are, it is 11 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah.
But it's 5 o'clock somewhere.
Hell yeah.
Now, I'm going to be honest.
On this one?
Hell yeah.
Okay. Just checking.
I want to be candid with you and let you know that, did you see the original how to shotgun a beer video I posted?
No.
No, it was based off of you. Because when I was on your podcast and you tried to shotgun that beer, you didn't pop the tab, and I'm so annoyed.
I don't do anything with it.
I wasn't annoyed. I just felt so bad because I knew that the liquid was probably flowing so slowly, and the amount of sucking effort you were putting in was probably astronomical.
I'm thrilled that you're here to teach me your ways, because when I was in high school, it was just as heinous. And like, I think I knew to pop the tab back then, because once you said pop the tab, something in my brain was like, oh, I recall this. However, I would still not be able to finish it, because I just would I would walk around the party like this and be like, okay, we're drinking out of. You're
so cute.
I'm a mess. But you're here to fix it.
I am here to fix it. It's all when it comes to the chugging part, it's mind over matter. Okay. So I'm going to take this step by step with you. Okay. Don't go ahead.
I won't.
Don't go ahead.
I took my ADHD meds. I'm ready to listen.
Is that going to interact poorly with the alcohol?
I don't think so, but I'm not supposed to drink on my antidepressant, but I don't know anybody who follows.
We're going to make sure. I'm just going to go through from beginning to
end. Okay. I'm going to put my beer down so I can fold my hands so I can listen. Spoons and bowl.
Oh, is that a kindergarten thing?
Yeah. That would be in my lap, though. But yeah.
Okay. We're going to rotate the can so that the tab is facing downward.
Okay.
That's going to make it easy to pop quickly. Okay?
Okay.
So just positioning right now. Okay. Feel around the bottom for the air pocket. That's kind of the hard part. I never really know if I'm actually feeling the air pocket, but it's usually like down at the bottom.
It's like squishy.
Yeah, it's more squishy than the other parts.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you put your canine into this can, stuff's going to spew out. Don't make a joke. You have to suck up that immediate burst of beer.
Okay. It was hard.
It's important to suck it up quickly. We're not going to pop at the same time. Okay. I'm sorry for being overbearing.
Please, no, this is great.
Okay, so we have to suck it up immediately, because we don't want people watching us to be like, oh my gosh, she didn't really shotgun that beer. Look at all the beer that fell out in the, right? Okay, so it's all about fooling people. Okay, so canine, sometimes you have to do it a couple of times and then suck it. Would you like me to demonstrate first?
Yeah.
Okay, I brought 2 cans just in case I mess this up.
I'll go downstairs if I need another.
Okay, great. See, that one's not working. Okay. So now I have an itty bitty hole. It's itty bitty.
Yeah.
We don't want an itty bitty hole, because we want to impress people by how quickly we can chug this, and we do that with a big hole. So you have to very gingerly. Well, do you want to bite into your can first?
Yeah. Okay.
Incredible.
Thank you. And I have my bitty hole, and my acrylics are ready to puncture.
Okay, but be very, very, very careful. If you feel like you might not be able to do it, use a tool, because the night before my wedding, I was way too drunk and trying to impress people. I sliced my finger open. There was blood everywhere.
Ay. Okay.
And then as you are opening the hole, bend the tin inwards so that sharp edges don't get into like your gums and stuff.
Totes. Oh, there we go. How big is your hole? Oh, it's okay. I see.
Oh, like
the fact that I can see it. It's like big. Okay.
Yeah.
This is a lot of prep work. Who knew?
I know.
Shit. I'm going to have to shotgun. I keep saying it's the last time I'm ever going to shotgun a coffee, but now that I have this technique, I have to.
You got
Okay.
Again for the people. Okay. Now this is where we're going to get ready for go time. You're going to put your mouth on the hole, and then you're going to pop the tab at the same time. It's going to be one fluid motion. Okay. And you know this already. As soon as you pop the tab, you need to tilt the can so that the beer goes through the right hole.
Sure. I'm going to prep it because my acrylics are going to...
Okay. Oh, yeah. I'm not sure how you get through things mentally, but for me, I kind of just count to 7 in my mind. And through those 7 seconds, I am completely disassociated from my body.
Amazing.
I cannot think about how cold it is or isn't. I can't think about how it tastes. I just have to, once I get to 7, then I can feel all the feelings. But
we're in labor again. We're having a baby again.
Yes.
It's the same technique.
Precisely. Would you like to do this together, or would you like to do this one at a time?
Let's do it together. Why not?
Okay. You ready?
YOLO. Yeah.
3, 2, 1. Oh my God.
Susie!
Can I see your hole? Do you feel... Oh, did you do it? You finished the whole thing.
I did, and it was so much easier. There was no sucking.
Hole?
It was flowing.
No, it just flows in. Yep. It's the hole and it's the tab popping that were your problems.
That was remarkable. You are a masterclass.
I feel honored that I was able to teach you this skill, and I cannot wait for you to share it with the world.
Oh my God.
Now you can go to parties and just be like absolutely feral.
Hell yeah.
And people will look at you and be like, who is this psychopath? But they're also going to be absolutely wowed.
Wow.
They're going to be frazzle dazzled.
Frazzled? I'm going to give them the old frazzle dazzle. I love motherhood.
I know. I loved motherhood too because I just always, this is what like my MILF era is.
Hell yeah.
It's not about changing who you are because you're a mom now. It's maintaining the cool with a body. And that's why I'm still shotgunning beers with my kids, because I want that kid to grow up and be like, look at my dope ass mom shotgunning a beer with me in her arms.
Absolutely. No, I think it's so much fun to just be who you are and have so much fun and show your kids that. Because it's just like, we should show our kids authentic joy, like whatever that is to us. And there's plenty of people in this world who will be like, oh my God, she's shotgunning a beer and she has a baby. But like, it's not like we've had 18 beers. Like,
I know.
Like,
oh my gosh, I know. I'm not hammered holding my baby.
Yeah. It's like, let's not be dramatic. Like, it's really okay. And it's also important to model like moderation and like knowing your limits and like sharing like, hey, mommy maybe didn't always make the best decisions, but we learned, and here's how I'm going to impart my wisdom onto you, my little one. So like, I don't know. I think that wasn't modeled for me growing up. So I had to find out a lot of stuff on my own. And I just love the idea of being like, Jay, we're going to teach you everything mommy knows. Good, bad, ugly.
I appreciate that you're doing that with Jay. My mom did that with me, and I feel very lucky because she was so radically honest with me while I was a child and in middle school about questions that I had and her own experiences. And as a result, I always felt very confident to come to her with questions or issues that I had that were very sensitive. And I knew so much from her that I never kept anything from her. She always knew when I was like going to a party or when I was sleeping over someone's house, but lying to my dad. And because I had that relationship and that foundation, I never snuck out. I never got super drunk. I didn't do any of the traditional high school bad things because I knew I had that touchstone in her. Yes. And I think that Jay will experience the same thing.
I hope so, because from what obviously I don't know like the intimate details of you and your mother's relationship, but I feel like from the conversations we've had, it seems like you have a very beautiful relationship even now. Like when you talk about leaving teaching, several times I was editing the episode of the podcast, my podcast that you were on, and couple times you were just like, yeah, my mom and I talked about it. And then it's like this huge life decision that you made. And it's like, I just want that. Like, that's so wonderful.
It is. And there is a line to toe, because you want to be a mom and a friend, but you don't necessarily want to be way too much of one or the other. And so that can be very difficult. So we have to be mindful of that. And I don't know what my relationship is going to be with Hawthorne. I'm sure it's going to be very different because I don't have a girl. But at the same time, in the same breath, it was a little bit more difficult because sometimes our relationship did veer more towards friendship. And then I felt almost like more of a responsibility for my mom and for the things that might have been going on that I shouldn't have been concerned about because I was a child. But overall, the honesty, I think, absolutely changed my trajectory and my behavior.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I'm so glad that you mentioned that too, because it's a thought that I've had. Like growing up with my mom, she was always like, I am your mother, not your friend. And I went the opposite direction where like I very much internalized that. And now we have a really lovely relationship, but it was not like that until I moved 2,500 miles away from home. And we developed it. But, you know, there is that line to toe, and it's something that I think about a lot. But I think, you know, I think we've said this I think we've talked about this before, but because we're not perfect, like I know that I'm not a perfect person, so I'm going to make mistakes, and I'm just gonna try to take off of her cues and do the best I can. But right now I'm like, she's only 8.5 months old. Like, you don't have to think about that right now, but it's hard not to, you know, you project so much into the future.
I know. I mean, we can say this over and over again. We're going to fuck up our kids. Mistakes are going to be made. The true growth and learning and relationship building comes in the repair, comes from making a mistake, hurting, doing something that's not aligned with our values, but then coming back to our kid and saying, listen, I did something wrong. This is what I did. This is how it made you feel. And this is what I'm going to do in the future. And obviously that not only models how to handle failure for your kids, but it also shows your kid how much, I think, how much you value their relationship with you. You're not just going to gloss over it or sweep it under the rug. And then it humanizes us as well. So I'm just leaning on that. As long as I am mindful, aware of what's going on with my actions and how it's affecting my child, and being able to come back and repair, I think that I will fuck him up, but I'll fuck him up a lot less than I would otherwise.
Totally. And how many parallels, I don't know about you, but when I was listening to you talk about that, I was drawing so many parallels to teaching and like authentic relationship building and guiding our students through that, because I was a big proponent of restorative justice and restorative conversations over like traditional PBIS, because I feel like having those restorative conversations with students while they're in conflict with one another and living that out through my relationships with colleagues, parents, any stakeholders, and students themselves really was what set me apart as a teacher, because I may have not always had the best pedagogy or management. I may have made, whatever, we're all growing as teachers, but I always had a lot of pride in how my relationships were so strong. And it really just comes from living that out. And it's really something I cherish from my time teaching.
Teaching, I think, and I'll see this as I start to actually parent. I don't feel like I'm parenting right now. I feel like I'm keeping someone alive.
Absolutely.
But I think that teaching definitely gave me a lot of practice in what it's like to be a parent, especially in that regard in the relationship building. I remember the day that I decided to just be honest about my shortcomings and my failures to my students, and I felt so much liberation, because I just had this light bulb moment where I was like, if I'm honest about what I'm going through, things that didn't go so well up front, one, on a teacher level, my kids will usually have more grace with me on that day. And two, they'll see that it's okay to not be perfect and on all the time, and how to manage that in professional situations and where those professional situations are. And that it's okay to like feel really bad one day and just be off your game, but still try your best and not be totally off because of it, but work alongside it. Anyway.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think teaching gives us a lot of insight into parenting, especially you as a kindergarten teacher.
Yeah. Well, you too.
So,
I mean, I'm not going to know what the heck to do when I get to the big kids, quote unquote, you know?
Oh yeah. I feel prepared. My midwife kept saying, "Oh, just wait until they're teenagers." I was like, Elizabeth, I got the teenagers.
Yes.
I got the teenage angst. I got all of the questions about life and the inner turmoil and the I can handle. But when they're learning the sounds of letters, or when they're having trouble having empathy and understanding other people's viewpoints, that's where I'm not really sure how to do anything.
You'll be surprised how much overlap there is. Truly. Like when I taught theater to middle and high schoolers, and we were having these conversations, when I entered the kindergarten classroom, I was like, whoa, there is a lot of the same stuff going on here, actually. And like honoring that and like giving it the full like importance and weightiness that I gave to middle schoolers and high schoolers, even though it was like sometimes the most trivial things, it really makes a difference. I think you'll be surprised.
Well, yeah, because it's big to them.
Yeah, it's all they know.
Speaking of theater, you were in theater in high school, weren't you?
Yes, I was very heavily involved in theater. Yeah.
I want to know about Fraz in high school.
Oh my gosh.
Who is Fraz? Who is Fraz in high school outside of the Fraz that we know now? I will say theater kids are my favorite students.
Well, I claim that still to this day, so thank you very much. I don't know if they would be my favorite students, even though I taught them. They would come to my room after school for a couple hours, and I'd be like, you guys.
Well, of course they
Clearly, because you spend your whole day like containing your personality, basically, and then they come into their safe space of theater, and it's like, boom, and it's like, I need coffee at 2 p.m. to be with you. But it was super fun. So in high school, I think there was like this duality to me in high school. Hang on, there got a ding ding. There was like this duality going on in high school where I was simultaneously going through like a lot of like behind the scenes, like my biological dad and I were like having a severance in our relationship, and my dad who like my stepdad who like has become my dad through life, he ended up adopting me as an adult actually. It was really beautiful. I remember my first Father's Day, I was like, I have a dad, it's so cool. They like change your birth certificate, and I know that's very controversial as like an infant for adoption, but as an adult who chose that, I felt like that was huge. It was a big day. So like we celebrate my gotcha day, even though I was like 26 or whatever. Yeah, it's really fun. Yeah. So so he was diagnosed with heart disease. So like he was having a lot of heart attacks, and, you know, as a family, we were kind of grappling with that. And I had a bad relationship with my mom, and all this home stuff was going on. So there was like that section of my life. And, then there was school, and school was both an escape and a time where that was kind of highlighted, where like I was going through a lot of like bullying from like certain groups, but then I found this like refuge in theater where I was able to, like, I think I told you I would skip class, and it wasn't even a discussion with my teachers. I just wouldn't show up, and the principals would find me like painting sets in the auditorium or like taking a nap on the stage. And like it was so just like important to me to be able to have that element of myself. And then after school from 4 to 10 p.m. every single day, and from 9 to 4 on Saturdays, I would go to theater school after school. And I would be like, my senior year, I was in 11 productions, not all of them necessarily great, but they were what I did all the time. And I took a gap year, and I spent a gap year after high school traveling to New York City and taking classes because with my father, like having all his heart attacks, I missed audition season. And if you're a theater kid going to college for theater, you kind of like, you need that. And NYU rejected me because my grades were abysmal. So I auditioned at all of the studios that NYU partners with for their musical theater and theater programs to be like, they want me. See, they want me independently of you. So I was going through like all of this, but theater was like such a central, like the glue that held me together in high school. And it was after high school that I really, I don't know, like I started to branch outside of theater. Like once I got into college and I kind of had a safe space with my community in general, and I started to make really real friends, I started to be like, do I really need this element of myself? And I started to look into pre-med and teaching, which had always been in the back of my mind. And ultimately ended up going back to theater for several more years, but it was like this very transformative time where I was able to like let my frontal lobe develop a little bit and kind of separate myself from when I moved to LA in 2013. I was like finally out of like the traumatic environment that I was in and able to start unpacking that through therapy and discovering myself. And it was just such like a beautiful like season and decade really of transformation that I went through. And I just loved that. But like, it was really interesting how theater was like my little central thing for so long, and that kind of like takes Fraz from baby Fraz to like the beginning of really the pandemic. I mean, I still consider myself a work in progress now, You want me to take
a theater kid in school, you were doing theater outside of school as well. You're like one of those kids that does sports and then does club sports.
Yeah, exactly. Like I went to quote unquote like theater school, but it was an after school theater school. And I was an independent study, like art student. So I went, I had like additional credits that I could take outside of school. So I was like kind of doing that. It was weird.
Did you said teaching had always been in the back of your mind, but my original question was going to be, what role did theater play? Because you were committed to theater, and then you were continuously committed to theater in college. So was that just a method of coping and having a safe space, or was there something there that you potentially wanted to pursue maybe when you were younger?
Definitely. I think it was both. I got my first class of 2-year-olds when I was 17 years old, and I was teaching ballet and dance and musical theater I first had my 2-year-olds in dance, and then on the weekends I would teach little musical theater camp, and I was like a choreographer's assistant, and I wasn't like the best dancer in the world, but I was a pretty good teacher. So I worked really hard at my dance, but it just wasn't something that like, especially with my undiagnosed ADHD, I could never and mine's pretty severe, to be completely candid. But I couldn't go into a dance class, and I couldn't dance competitively because they would teach me the combo in the class, and there was just no way that with one time of seeing a combo I could ever repeat it back. And when you get to a certain level of dance, there is that expectation of like, we're going to show you this once, you're going to remember it, and you're going to do it. But when I had my notes, because when you're a choreographer's assistant, you're like making what they call the Bible, and you like write and you take notes on everybody's part. And I was really good at that. And I was really good at going back and teaching it later. So that was kind of my first foray into teaching. And I realized I really liked it. I mean, I wanted to be a teacher when I was in preschool. And then just as I became more and more involved in theater, there was this element of like, well, what else will I do? Like I kind of got it into my mind that this was my path. This was my goal, my career goal. And I was also surrounded by a lot of people who they would like talk down about people who weren't pursuing theater that were very involved in theater. It was like, if you can't hack it in theater, you would do something else. And because I found so much of my worth within theater, that was hard for me, where I was like, I'm going to do this, but it didn't make me happy. It didn't like fulfill me the way that I knew I needed to be fulfilled, really. So it was like this parallel world. And then I obviously, when I went to college, I was nannying. I was teaching Shakespeare for many years, and I just loved it. But there was still this element of like something missing. I would always see the classroom teachers and be like, I really want that. Like, I want to have my class and I want to teach and I want to like be really in it. And being like a specials teacher or an after school teacher kind of left me wanting a little bit. So I ended up going back to school to get my teaching credential and kind of quitting the nonprofit.
Was it hard to make the decision to kind of do a 180 and go back to school after you had kind of an established career or passion and routine in theater?
It was a little bit of a relief, actually.
Oh.
I was not making money. Like, there was a time when I called my mom and I was like, do people really make $2,000 a month? And she was like, what the hell are you talking about? And I was like, well, I was like, I just couldn't imagine it because I wasn't, at the time I was still on my parents' health insurance, thank God. But like, I worked at a nonprofit, I worked at theater, but in LA, I don't know about the rest of the world, but in the time that I was working in LA, it was very common for you to do a show for free, for quote unquote experience. So I was trying to do a day job and do theater at night. And I didn't really like doing film because part of my like neurodivergency is like, I have a lot of, if you met me in person, you'd notice like I have a lot of trouble making eye contact. So for film, that's a big issue because you have to maintain your eye line. And I just have a lot of trouble doing that. So that's the more lucrative thing, you know? And people in LA would always say like success in theater or acting is paying your rent with your craft. And I was struggling to do it. I was having a lot of trouble with auditioning. I started to have panic attacks in auditions and on stage.
Oh, in auditions, not before.
Yeah. No. So when I would be dancing on stage, there was a show where I collapsed 3 times because I was so weak from a panic. If you had a panic attack, they're always a little different, but like mine manifested as like dizziness and tunnel vision and like shakiness and weakness. And like, I couldn't stand. And that would happen this was before meds, this was before diagnoses. I didn't know what was wrong with me. So I was really frustrated by that. And I just knew that it wasn't fulfilling me to go to audition, because auditioning is your job when you're an actor. Your job is to go get continually rejected, and every once in a while you get that thing. And I would see my friends with this like undying passion and love for acting, and it didn't fill me up that way. And I wanted to teach. And I know that I'm like a political being and this is a little political, but the night of the 2016 election, when Donald Trump was declared the winner, I was teaching in East LA theater, and I knew that my students' parents were afraid because a lot of my parents were here without papers. And when he won, I said, fuck this, I'm teaching. And I slammed the bedroom door and I immediately quit my job and applied to the teaching program I ended up doing and meeting my very best friends in. But it took that moment. And then the next day when half of my class didn't show up, I was so affirmed. I was like, this is awful. And like, all I want to do is continue to work with my community and be with my students, but I want to be a safe space for them because it's very evident to me that the system is not serving them and it's not serving anybody. It's not serving anybody. And I wanted to be that change in the space. So I was like, I'm done. And it was such a relief. I remember texting my friends and being like, do you judge me? Do you think I'm a failure? And they were like, honey, I don't mean to be rude, but I don't think about you at all. Like, I'm thinking about my journey. I want you to be happy, but I don't give a shit if you are in theater or teaching or whatever you're doing. Like, they were like, I love you because you're you, but not because you're on the same
Right.
journey as me in my career. And I was like, duh, like that kind of makes so much sense, but it hadn't occurred to me, you know?
I wish we kept that at the forefront more often, that we are not on other people's radars. Everybody is the main character of their own life, and they don't care about us as much as we think, in the best way possible and in the most liberating way possible. I know that you also had a lot of anxiety around safety in schools as a teacher. Me too. I think I told you I had like 2 bomb threats the last month of our last school. Parkland is very, very close to where I teach and live. So it was very present in my mind. And have you thought about how you want to school baby Jay?
I go back and forth all the time because I, in my mind, want to homeschool her. At least as long as I have knowledge of the curriculum and I have enough of a mommy community around me that I know I could get her the socialization that she deserves. But in the long run, like, I do want her to go to school. I want her to have that experience very badly.
I know.
Sorry.
It can be really hard. Now that we're here, actually, I'm going to change gears again because I want to talk about you as a mom. I remember when you first had Jay, you mentioned that you always dreamed of being a mom, always wanted to be a mom. Can you tell me more about that? I come from a different perspective, so I would love for you to share. I
would love to talk about this. Yeah, no, I think the moment I became conscious, I wanted to be a mommy. And I was in a single parent home for a while there. My mom was a nurse. She worked night shift, but I just still to this day, my most treasured memories are of me and my mom in this teeny tiny little house together when it was just us, before she met my dad, before she had my brothers. And it was just the best. And I have always wanted to be a mom. I was always like taking care of littler kids than me. And I remember in preschool, I always said I want to teach the big kids, and those were the kindergartners at the time. And I don't know. There was always something about being a caretaker to me. And certainly as I progressed through my life and like the aforementioned like struggles I had in my own childhood, coupled with some other things, I was really like, again, just desiring to be that safe space for a child. And as a mom now, it's just such an honor to get to know her and like try to serve her the best I can as her parent, because, you know, she didn't ask to be born, but I really do want her to just have, like, I want to be the best parent I can for her. So I'm loving it. She's like literally a dream come true for me.
So do you think that such a strong desire to be a mom growing up has made the transition to being a mother easier for you?
I do. And I think also, like, as a kindergarten teacher, you are a caretaker for so many children every day that there's a certain, I was talking to my friend and she called it like a threshold level of like bullshit. She was like, you can deal with so many things at one time that, like, it's just, to me, like when things would pop off with Jay, or like, you know, there's something going on that I need to handle, I'm just like, oh, well, this is what it is. And I just do it. And I don't really feel any type of like remorse or like animosity towards it. But it does, in a different way, make it very difficult for me to go out or do other things. And I definitely like have started to kind of forget myself as a person and really just have been zoned in on like mommyhood. And that I can already tell like is going to be an issue for me.
Are you like the only mom in your group?
No, I have one of my best friends has 2 kids now, her and her daughter. Okay. Her daughter is the same age as Jay, pretty much, like a few weeks apart. They are.
You said that's one of your best friends. You could cute. You were able to be pregnant together.
I know. It was really special.
That's special.
And the other best friend of mine has a son that's 6 months older than Jay. We were pregnant together for a brief stint, obviously.
Right.
And we're like already he is going to be the oldest in his grade. So they're going to be in the same year. So we're already talking about like classes they can take together. It's super fun. So I do have friends who are moms, and that has been everything.
Oh, I know. I think that one of the only reasons why I am so laid back and have been so laid back is I also have pretty debilitating anxiety. And I always anticipated throughout my pregnancy that once I gave birth, my postpartum would be just a train wreck, because I was convinced that I was going to have postpartum depression and anxiety. And it was such a blessing to watch so many of my friends be pregnant, give birth, and raise their own babies for a couple of months before I gave birth to mine, because that kind of normalized bringing around and being with kids and seeing the parents that I know are just very laid back in general. So they were like my only model of parents of babies. And so I watched things that weren't really a big deal to them, then translating into things not being a big deal for me. So I was much more able to tune into my own intuition and go with the flow and enjoy being a mom more than what I expected, which was going to be like an overwhelming frenzy of being scared of taking my baby out, people meeting my baby, over analyzing every sneeze, cough, spit up, burp, hiccup. There was a little while where I was like, should my baby be hiccuping this much? It's amazing, like the tiny things that we get worked up about.
My husband did the same thing. He was like, why is she hiccuping so much? And I was like, baby, just Google it. Like, don't take my word for it. It's okay. It's all good. But it is. So it's an alarming amount.
Okay. Well, I'm glad it wasn't just my kid. Near the end, I felt him hiccuping a lot. So in utero. So I figured it was just like a personality trait. I don't know.
And my husband hiccups a lot too. So I was like, baby, she's your child. But yeah, in utero, she was also very hiccupy.
Robbie's also like, Susie, you hiccup all the time. It's totally fine. He's your kid. And there's so much to learn about your relationship as well, obviously, when you have a kid and how that changes.
Like I could. Bananas level. I mean, we are very fortunate. We have a wonderful therapist, and we have like a really good family support. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we got that when we moved in together, because I and him both come from like families that were divorced or had really unhealthy dynamics in general. And we didn't really have like a model for a healthy relationship. But when I started dating him, my friends were like, if you fuck this one up, we are disowning you. You must go. Like, bye. Because I would have this constant fear of like waiting for the other shoe to drop, because he was so stable and like loyal and kind. And I was not used to that. I was used to utter chaos and toxicity and abuse in my relationships. So I was always, and I have OCD and it manifests in relationships in general. So that's how my OCD is. So good Lord Almighty. I mean, my friends, and I said this at my wedding, my friends carried me on their backs for the first month of our the first year of our relationship. Wow. And we got a therapist together, because it was just, once we moved in together, the stakes got higher and my anxiety spiked. And it just was the greatest thing, just to be like, every time we go in, just being like, every time we would have a fight, which isn't often, like maybe every 4 months, we'll go in and like unpack it and like talk about everything. It was just like a boot camp in relationship building. It was really cool.
Yeah. I'm so grateful that you do that. I found we haven't found a therapist together, but we did do a lot of marriage mentorship before we got married. So grateful. Recommend this kind of stuff to everybody, because people, it seems like, at least what I'm seeing with my friends or had seen in the past, is that so many people kind of are just going into marriage because they had such a great relationship and that was the next step and things worked out. So why won't they continue to work out? And they don't realize that you're two very different people coming from very different backgrounds, expectations, values, and priorities and traditions. And those things need to be hashed out and talked through. And if you're not taking the perspective of your partner of being someone that is wildly different from you and then accommodating for that in the way that you speak to each other and treat each other and handle your relationship, it's just going to be a shit show. You're going to be constantly missing each other. So were you and Arun on the same page about keeping baby Jay off the internet?
No, he really didn't care. But he also doesn't have the full scope of understanding of like why, but he was very much like, yeah, of course. But we, you know, he kind of deferred to me for that and never really questioned it. It wasn't really a discussion. But when she was on stage at a comedy show and he was very like, whoa, like she's on stage, like, why didn't you text me? Why didn't you ask me? And I was like, I didn't think about it. Like she's not.
Well, yeah, he also like deferred to you.
Yeah. And like to me posting her to 1 million followers and him being like, well, whatever you want to do versus me having her on stage at a comedy show with 2,000 people. I was like, I think the 2,000 people where I'm not showing her face, like she was asleep on a shoulder. So I was like, I thought that was better. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, but it was interesting.
So where did that decision come from? I see that a lot more people are being mindful of their children on the internet. Well, and I think that's super respectable.
Yeah. I mean, the first thing that happened when I got pregnant, hang on, let me get her down on the floor. The first thing that happened when I got pregnant was somebody told me that they hope I have a miscarriage because she is mixed race. And they told me that they didn't understand why I was not married to a white guy. And immediately
Was this a comment? Was this a DM?
These were comments on my personal Instagram before I went private. Mm-hmm.
Personal. This wasn't even on Miss Frazzle. This was on.
No, this was an 8-week-old ultrasound.
And these were multiple people.
Yeah. And then on TikTok, things emerged too, once they saw my wedding. And I was just like, you know what? I was already not going to post her, but completely fuck this. You guys lost the privilege of that because I don't even like the fact that she can Google her mother and see the hateful things that people say about me. And it bothers me when people refer to me by name, when they talk shit about me, when they say Fraz blank, blank, blank. A part of me is like, that's not me. Because honestly, like I said, like I have a really wide network of friends and family that I love and care about and know who I am. And if I was doing anything fucked up, they would check me because that's our relationship. Right. So these strangers on the internet who don't know anything, it's like they're talking about a character. But when they found out my name and they would refer to me by name, it bothered me a lot. So that's immediately I was like, I'm not sharing her name either because I don't want her to find her name I didn't think that I could handle it if they said shit about my child. Even if she would never see it, I knew that I couldn't handle it. So I just totally kept her off. And I've only been thankful of that, given the things that people say about people's babies and kids and like, not only like, the things I have issue with that people post are the things that are not dignifying. I feel like that is a big issue. If I wouldn't want it posted about myself, I don't want it on the internet about my baby. And that includes like, you know, all kinds of things. If I don't want myself crying or looking ugly on the internet, I'm not going to post my baby doing it either, you know?
Right.
So I just really want her to like look, because, you know, in kindergarten, people would see their pictures that their parents posted, and it would be like, if they didn't have the right outfit on or they were like semi-clothed, my 5-year-old students would be like, Mommy, I don't have pants on. You know, like, even though you're a baby, like, they still think the same. Yeah. So I was like, you know, even though it would be like me as the parent making the decision, I just couldn't do it to her. And, you know, obviously I've always been a long-standing proponent of like teachers not posting their kids. Cause like, that's not a parent. You're not a parent. You can't make that decision. You can't even debate that decision because it's not your kid.
I agree.
So yeah, that was like a lot of stuff going into why I keep her off the internet.
I think that's really respectable because you're anticipating her future in making that decision and taking into account her feelings, emotions, and potential experiences. Oh my God, I couldn't imagine.
No.
I couldn't imagine.
Yeah. And like this speculation of like what her name is or isn't doesn't really bother me. I'm also not like, some people are like, I could see her for 15 seconds on a freaking podcast on YouTube. And I'm like, guys, I'm not throwing a bag over my child's head. Like at the end of the day, like I'm not going to be like, you perceived her for 15 seconds. That's not what it's about to me. It's not that I'm like having her in hiding or going to like give somebody a cease and desist if they figure out her name. Like, I'm not that frantic about it. I just want her to have privacy and dignity. And like,
right.
Those things are like pretty easy to maintain, you know?
I agree. Yeah. And I only recently found out about how creepy people are about babies on TikTok. Baby feet, the amount of saves that people will have on like videos that feature baby feet, I always make sure, ever since I saw that, I cover Hawthorne's feet with some kind of like GIF or picture.
I had no idea. It didn't even cross my mind. Because especially, we're not sick fucks, you know.
I know. It wouldn't have crossed my mind either. You consider Frazzle like a character. So
in a way, yeah.
Which I totally get and see. But I do also see you on TikTok as someone that's very authentic and relatable. You feel like a friend.
Thank you.
So I don't know, was that intentional to be authentic? I mean, I'm sure you didn't plan to gain the following that you have. Maybe it was always meant to be.
It's really interesting. Hang on, let me put her down on her wall. When I was starting social media, when I started teaching, I was constantly like comparing myself to other teachers that were social media famous. I wanted to be like them. I was looking at the Ron Clark Academy and I was like, I want to do room transformations. I want to do this. I want to do that. And then when I got into the classroom, I was like, I'm a failure. Like I can't do anything. And I wanted to provide like a different perspective that didn't seem to exist at the time on Instagram. So when I found TikTok, I immediately found teachers there. And I wasn't really finding my place. I know. Does that make you happy now? She wanted to look out the window. Who knew? Not me. So I started to be like, wow, TikTok is a very like authentic platform to me. And at least it used to be. I found that it was very much more authentic than Instagram was at the time. So I was like really drawn to it, but I still don't think that I brought like my full self to the space because I was still trying to be like a teacher on TikTok. And I wanted to be that version of myself that I was in the classroom with my kids. Cause I don't know. I didn't want to show like my off-duty self really, but I don't know about you, but once I became pregnant, I stopped giving any fucks. Like I couldn't be bothered. I was so sick. The year sucked. Like it was just a shitty year at school. Yeah. And on top of it, I was like, all I'm living for is my baby right now and my family and my friends and like offline life. So like bringing my full self to the social media space also didn't seem like that big of a deal. And I think that kind of gave me this like hubris where I was like, you know, I'm being authentic, so people will appreciate that. But what I didn't realize at the time was that people will use your authenticity against you just as often as people will use your authenticity to relate to you and really see themselves in you. So it got to a point where I was authentic, but shit wasn't always great. And the things that hit the For You page were not me talking about positive things. Over and over again, the For You page would gobble up anytime I was upset or crying or stressed out, because that's the stuff that people were grabbing onto, especially as Teacher Quit Talk perked up.
Right.
So as that was going on, my content about the struggles of the school system was constantly being pushed. So people who followed me pretty religiously were like, I don't understand what anybody's talking about. Like, what do you mean? You're so authentic, but you share the good and the bad. I feel like you're so positive. But people who didn't were very much like, Fraz is so negative. I hate now that she's pregnant. She's so different. And really, it was just like, I wasn't able to strike a balance yet of being authentic while also being mindful of what I was putting on the internet. I was being completely transparent, where what I realized was people don't actually want that. There are people who do, but the general population does not actually want that.
Yeah.
They want to have a parasocial relationship with the version of you that they've created in their head. So something I talk about a lot now, especially in like business meetings, is like how I protect my peace, stay authentic, but also hold on to a part of myself that not everyone gets to see unless they actually know me. So I want people to feel like they know me, and I never want to be fake. That's one thing I don't think I'm capable of doing. But at the same time, I'm not going to share every piece of myself or my life, because it's just not worth it.
It sounds like you experimented with a lot of different ways of presenting yourself on social media and have finally settled on a final decision, essentially.
For now. I mean, I don't think anything is ever final with the way that we present ourselves or the way that we are. You know, we're always in flux as people, and that goes just the same for how we are on social media and all kinds of things. But you know, social media is also always changing. And the things that people want to see are always changing. And right now you're seeing a lot of like vlogging content is very popular, at least on the side of TikTok where I've been. And I don't know how I want to find my place in that, but I'm also not that sold on it for my own personal journey. But, you know, it's something that I can continue to assess, because as much as people want to say that influencing isn't a job, I'm working 50 hours a week in this, and I get paid the same amount of money that I did as a teacher to do this shit all day. And it's like, I love it, but you're working in marketing. You know, you are a marketer, and in acting, the type of actors that get booked on commercials are called commercial actors. So you're a commercial actor, you're a marketing department, you're a brand, like you're doing all this shit. It just happens to be your face that you're marketing. So you have to kind of be smart about it. And I've definitely learned a lot along the way. So I wouldn't say I've like settled on one thing, but I'm really prioritizing real relationships versus people on the internet getting access to every part of my life. I don't know. It's like a weird moment for me.
I don't know if you identify as this, but I see you and what you're doing as you're like a very good businesswoman. You are very good at monetizing and creating things out of seemingly small things. And I really admire that about you. And I'm sure you didn't anticipate that social media influencing would end up being a full-time gig for you. But I'm really proud of and really admire that you have fallen into it and just hit the ground running. And now not only are you doing TikTok, social media, you're now on YouTube with the podcast, and you started the podcast, and you've also always had merch, and then you're doing the Patreon. And I think that's so cool to witness you seeing opportunities and grabbing them. Because I think also, I don't know if you feel this way, but it can be hard with having a large following on social media to not feel imposter syndrome, which I absolutely do. And so for so long, I was just like, well, why would I make clothes? Or who would want to care about what I have to say on a podcast? Or why would I charge higher rates for brands that reach out to me? I only have this many followers. And I think that held me back a lot. And I think it's so great that you have developed a stream of income that has allowed you to stay home with Jay and really market yourself and take advantage of not only this time in your life, but also like this time in the world where social media is so lucrative for so many people.
Thank you so much for saying all of that. I really cherish that. I mean, I have tried, and I failed and I fucked up just like everyone has. But the fact that I am able to stay home with her is everything to me. And I would literally do anything for her. So every decision I make and every consideration I put forth of like what's next is just so that I can continue to stay with her and be present. And like as you can see, she's with me on everything. And sometimes I'll be editing and she'll be sitting there watching me and she'll start to be like, and I'm like, Jay, some parents have to go to work, leave you. The other night, Redacted was laughing.
Do you know how good you have it?
I know. Redacted was laughing because I was sitting with her. We were working and I was like, I don't mean to invalidate your experience, Jay, but you should really consider this perspective. And Redacted was like, what are you talking about to your baby? And I'm like, I just wanted to know, there's another option out there, but not in a mean way. But, so it has been really interesting, but I really have found that I don't have another option. Like I have to be business minded in some sense, but also always staying true to like my why of why I started social media was never to be popular. It was always, well, it was first very much to like show authenticity. And then that transformed to like, how much authenticity can I show? That's a van. And then how much authenticity can I show without giving away parts of myself I'm not willing to give away? And also now it's like this advocacy piece of like, as I was learning more and more and more about like diversity and equity and inclusion training that I was receiving and trauma-informed teaching training that I was receiving and just all of this stuff I was learning, I felt more and more this call to like bring that into what I was doing, whether it was like in a humorous way or whether it was very seriously. And sometimes I've gotten a little too spicy and I've pissed people off because I've lacked nuance in some of my statements because that's just life. But you're navigating it. So it's just a weird journey that I definitely, like you said, did not expect to go on.
Speaking of pissing people off, I have a question that is twofold. One, were you ever nervous about going into the political space on social media? I find that I am often nervous to speak out on issues that are, quote, political. So, but I love what you do. So I wonder if you went through the same thing and just like faced the haters.
No, I was never concerned about that. Even when I was doxxed, I wasn't concerned about that because I do not respect people who do not view human rights issues as such. People who think that race issues in our country and just the human decency that Donald Trump did not have as an opinion, I don't respect them. So I don't give a shit what they say about me or to me. I think it says more about them than it does about me.
Yeah.
Never bothered me. It bothers me when people make statements about myself personally. But like, honestly, the people that come at you for political shit are usually just like, you're ugly, bitch. And you're like, get a better insult. Like, or they'll call you a slut and you're like, thank you. I don't know what to tell you. Like, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Like, it doesn't bother me at all. So that is actually my favorite content to make because it feels the safest for me. Because I know that if I'm going to get hate about it, I'm not going to care.
Also, the last topic that I wanted to cover with you was your eating disorder, because I found so much comfort. You were pregnant before me,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember you eating in your car, and it would be a whole bunch of different things. It would be eating a bell pepper like an apple, or it would be eating like pizza from a gas station or some random like place with ranch. And I loved that you were doing that so publicly and being public about your relationship with food, because I knew that pregnancy was going to be really, really hard for me in that regard. And I always leaned on that, and you were kind of a model for me at that time. So I'm just curious about how your eating disorder formulated. I'm sure a lot of us have pretty similar stories from our childhood, where you're at now, what it was like, not only during pregnancy, but immediately postpartum, and now in your postpartum MILF era.
Yes, totally. It really started from a place of control. Anytime that something would go badly in my life, the first time I really noticed my anorexia coming into my life was after my first bad breakup. I was anxious and I didn't want to eat. And then I started to realize that I wasn't hungry anymore, and that was something that I could control. And then I started getting compliments, which is the most dangerous thing for me. It's people being like, wow, you look great. And then you're like, oh, I'm going to keep doing this. And then I would gain weight and lose it, gain weight and lose it, all through like my eating disorder. And when I was broke, when I was really poor, I would lose a lot of weight because I just didn't have money to eat. And
you're fine to take a minute with her if you need to.
She's okay. And anything you need me to ADR afterwards, I can send you a clean audio of. I can re-record anything.
I don't know what that means.
If there's any clips that you're like, re-record this, I can do that and send it back to you. But hang on, I don't know why. Why are we fussy, mamas? It's so interesting. When you're talking, she's quiet. But she's like struggling. I don't know.
She feels like she's having a conversation. Are you having a conversation, Jay?
Are your teethers hurting?
Are we becoming friends?
So it definitely started from a place of control. And then in my pregnancy era, it was kind of nice. It was kind of nice because, hang on, let me put her in the thing. You want to sit in your office? Sit down. We went to the animal there. You want to sit there? Look at that, Oops. Ooh, and look at this. Wowee, gazowie. So it started from a place of control, and then just like made me feel like I was skinny, which I equated with goodness, which was really fucked up, but I just did, and it wasn't right, and I had to unpack that too. But you know, when you're getting compliments all the time, you're like, oh, this is what I should be. This is what I should look like. But then when I would get well, I would find myself not liking the way I looked as much. And I was like, oh, this is kind of fucked up. So when I got pregnant, it was such a liberative, it was like liberation from it. It was like, I have to eat because I have a person in me. Yeah. So I was able to be like, oh, I can, and I didn't have to suck my tummy in. You never have to suck your tummy in. But I was like, oh, my tummy is free. Like I've been sucking it in since I was 13 years old. Like you can just like be, and it was really lovely. And I had already been in recovery at that time of getting pregnant because I wasn't ovulating, and my doctor was like, you need to knock this shit off or you're not going to get pregnant. And I immediately was like, okay. And, you know, I was eating and I was doing what I had to do because I wanted her so bad and I wanted her to be well. Postpartum, I stopped posting all of my like intuitive eating stuff because I had relapsed. And that's like the simplest way I can put it is like I relapsed, and I wasn't producing breast milk because I wasn't eating and I couldn't eat. And if somebody tried to feed me, I would be hysterical and crying and unable to do it. And it was just like a really hard time because I was so in love with my baby. I wanted to just, I don't know, I was just really struggling. And I think the anxiety of the hormone crash postpartum also led to that same feelings of I'm anxious, so I don't want to eat. And it made it very easy for me not to. But you cannot make milk if you're not eating. And we already had like a hard breastfeeding journey in general. And I was pumping, but I couldn't, just nothing. It was like dust.
Didn't matter.
No. So it was pretty tough. And it's also tough to be on the internet and people be like, are you not even trying to breastfeed? Or like, what's wrong? Why? And then people be like, only 10 people, only 10% of women can't breastfeed. And I'm like, okay, that's still a lot of fucking people. But also you don't know me. You don't know what I'm going through. So how dare you, you know, like maybe I am part of that 10% asshole or 5% or whatever that statistic is that they say. But, you know, it's tough. And lactation consultants aren't always the most accepting and positive people. So I had some experiences where I felt very like, fuck, this is all my fault. And like, I'm fucking up my kid because I'm not eating. And then that, of course, puts more pressure on you. So you're less likely to be able to eat or recover. And recently I finally started getting to like a really good place where like I'm eating pretty regularly. Like before we talked, I had like an entire bag of salad almost. I'm going to finish it after.
That's a big bowl of salad.
I love, but like, you know, I'm finally getting back to intuitive eating and feeling really good about it. And I know that I'll always be anorexic. Like it's not something that's ever going to go away because even when you're in recovery, you're just like, you know, you're managing it, you're maintaining it.
Yes.
And I'm okay with that. Like I think I maintain it well when I do maintain it, but I don't know. So that's kind of like where I am, where I've been, where I'm going with it. But yeah.
I felt the same way about during pregnancy, being able to let my stomach hang and be complimented for it, which was wild because people would be like, oh, baby. And I'm just letting it hang. Whereas before, obviously that wasn't the same situation. And everything that you're saying, I feel and have experienced just to a T. I now no longer, I mean, it's one, I mean, all of it. When you're anxious, you don't want, when we are anxious, not everybody experiences anxiety this way, but when
Thank
we're
God
anxious,
they don't, but yeah.
I don't have an appetite. Food is the last thing on my mind. It would be hard to force down something. And then once you're going through that period of anxiety, not even just people in the general public complimenting you, but I don't know if you experience this, but my parents would compliment me on what my body looks like during those times. So then I was not only getting validation from the outside world, I was getting validation from my parents, and I was an only child. So am an only child. So validation from my parents is crucial. And that just continued the spiral. Every compliment I got, the more thin that I wanted to get, and the worse everything else became. And so now, I'm sure you do this too, I am very conscious about never complimenting anyone on changes in their body, to the point where sometimes people were like, well, I would have really liked for you to appreciate all of the work that I put in for losing this weight, if they especially did it in a healthy way. But you never know someone's situation and what's going on behind closed doors that could lead to a change in their body either way. And it's so important to not make a comment on it because you never know if that's going to further worsen a situation that's going on that we don't understand. And then,
Go ahead. I thought it was my turn to talk and my child was playing a really funny song in the background. Continue, please.
No, I wasn't going to say anything. Okay. I was done.
It was like, around the office, what shapes can we see? Because it's her little office thing.
That's so funny.
And I was like,
the whole apparatus.
She loves it. She freaking loves it. But I was like, we're having the most serious conversation. In the office, ships are everywhere. Okay, thanks, Jay. Absolutely.
Thanks for joining.
I am the same. I mean, I really am mindful about it. And I've definitely had friends who are trying to like lose weight for their wedding or whatever. And they don't even need to lose weight. They have their own, you know, they're already like, I don't need to do it. I'm just doing it. And they're struggling. But like, I don't want to compliment people on that because I just know how impactful that can be, especially if you're in an unhealthy place. And I know that's all I want. So like, as much as I want it, I am thankful when people don't compliment me for certain things because I'm just like, not good. It's just not good.
Yeah.
But it's nice to hear that you like, not nice. It's bad. I'm sad as you're my friend, but like, it's nice to not be alone in these experiences because it feels so lonely.
Oh, I feel the same way. I know. And there's also, in addition to feeling lonely, it also almost feels comforting sometimes to be in that space because in that space you have control and you have praise. And what else could we want other than control and praise?
God, I love those two things. They're like a drug.
Right. I think that, and other than the salad, and Arun has been really good with helping you stay on track, right? Our partners are just A+.
Literally so wonderful. Hang on, she's orange, red, and green. Hello, blue and purple. Red and green. Hang on, you have to turn this off. That one, Susie, that one is let's have a colorful office party. Dada.
Orange, red, and green. That's hilarious.
It's horrible. So yeah, he has been so wonderful and like so supportive and like feeding me and like just even when I'm like, I don't want to eat, leave me alone. You know, he's still never like shies away from feeding me and supporting me. And like, I'm just so thankful that I found a partner who really, I don't know. It's not even like he tries to say the right things. I just think he just does, you know? He just is.
He's just a good man.
He is. We're both very lucky. In that
well, I'm grateful that you have this self-awareness now and you have a partner that is supporting you in that regard while you are raising a daughter.
Oh my gosh, believe me. The responsibility is huge and like I am always thinking about it and I'm really thankful that he has, you know, because the way that he engages with me about these sort of things is how she will internalize her own insecurities, I guess. And like he just is so respectful in the way that he speaks about me and obviously he wouldn't even have to say anything to Jay, but if he would say anything about my body in a certain way in front of her, she could very easily translate that to her own insecurities as she grows up. And like the fact that that's just not even a worry in my mind is really comforting.
I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah.
I mean, raising either kind of baby comes with its own set of responsibilities.
Absolutely.
So you have really set yourself up for a positive and successful future with Jay.
Thank you. That's like the highest compliment. That's all I could ever want, you know?
Oh, it sounds like
everything else is great, but that's the highest thing, you know? Priority one.
I have 5 fun questions for you before we go.
Okay.
I came up with them while I was on a work meeting.
Thrilling.
Don't tell them.
I won't.
Okay. 1. What is your ideal potato format?
That is such a conditional question, Susie.
Oh, damn it.
Well, no. It's a wonderful question. I just need to think about my favorite. I would have to say mashed potatoes, I think. I think that's like I could always go for a mashed potato. I've never been like, no, thank you. You know?
What is I know that Arun's mom makes you a lot of food.
Mm-hmm.
What's your favorite dish that she'll make for you?
Honestly, cauliflower and potatoes that she makes are so good. I don't know what they are.
Why?
They're just the way that they're like spiced and the way that they are like together is so good. I love, but like you can also never go wrong with like a dal sambar combo moment. Just so good with rice and yogurt and pickle and like, it's like such a classic, but yeah, those so good. So good.
Lucky you.
I know.
What is the best? What is the best coffee order for shotgunning?
Cold brew. But not a black cold brew. It has to be delicious. So whatever that means to you. But like milky and sweet, so good.
Easy to go down. Easy to suck faster.
Hell yeah. And now I know how to do it.
What? Yeah, I need to see you put it into practice.
I'm gonna.
What is the most surprisingly delightful part of being a mom?
I always was very confused when people would say that their child is their best friend. And I get it. You know, it's like they're a baby, so they're not like the same as like your girlfriends or your husband and like the level of friendship that you obtain. But I have been so thrilled by the way that I've been able to see her personality so fast. I mean, from the second that her prenatal like melatonin wore off of her and she started to be more wakeful.
Yeah.
I immediately was like, she's hilarious. And everyone was like, what the hell are you talking about? 'Cause she would just like sit there. And I was like, this potato was the funniest person. But I like have been so excited to see her little personality, even as a baby, like come out. And I just wasn't expecting to see any personality. I just thought babies are baby, you know?
So you were seeing her personality from like the beginning?
I would say
like
so.
1 month?
Yeah, I would say so. On a very small scale. But once I was able to like show it and like point to other people and they could see it, they were like, you were right. You were right. She's funny. She's funny. Yes.
That must be so much fun. Just hang out with a little buddy and know their personality.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, last question. How do you wind down after a stressful day? I need details.
Oh God. See, I love a nap. I love a nap with my dog. So I would say like the ideal situation after a long day is I have wine and I get like sleepy and I have like a snack, whatever snack calls to me in the moment. And I put on my Brandy Melville sweatpants and like a big old shirt. And then my daughter goes with her dad. And then I have the dogs come into my bed and we like watch something and fall asleep. And it's got to be like a nap to the point where like I have like fabric lines and drool. And then I wake up and it's just beautiful. And then I'm able to like tidy the house and like make my space like perfect for the next day. And then for the ultimate ending to a long day, I have to like be thinking of my treat for the next day. So it's like, okay, tonight was wonderful, but tomorrow I'm going to get this coffee in the morning, or like I bought this cake, like 2 days ago I had leftover birthday cake and I was like, tomorrow I get the birthday cake. And that was thrilling. So no. I'm really just like a lazy, like I'm a very like sloth-like person, and it's just lovely to me to really lean into that, you know?
Okay, well, I'm really glad that you identify as a sloth-like person. I am not one of those people, but when it comes to naps, I always felt very weird because my naps were like fabric lines on my face, 3 hours. And people would be like, oh, I take like a 45-minute nap. And I'm like, that is a sleep tease.
I've never done that in my life.
That is when I am Okay, good. Because that's when I'm just starting to get comfy, cozy, and then it's work to wake up.
Yes, I had a friend in college that was like, you elevate your feet. I know. You elevate your feet and then you put on a 26-minute timer. And then when you wake up, you're so refreshed. And I was like, that sounds awful. I love you, but that does not do it for me.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much for spending time with me, Arielle. Please, for anybody that might not know who you are, shout yourself out. Where can people find you?
Oh, you're so sweet. I am Mrs. Frazzled on all platforms. Mrs.Frazzled.
And your pod.
Oh, yeah. I have a podcast called Teacher Quick Talk where we talk to teachers about why they left teaching and if they would ever go back. And it's hosted with the wonderful A Walmart Parking Lot, Miss Redacted, who seems to be universally loved and is hilarious.
She is. She is very funny. Thank you so much for being with us. You are a light. You are comforting. You are a source of inspiration for me. I'm so proud of everything you've done and your authenticity. And I can't wait to see what you continue to do. You're a gem.
You're a freaking gem. Thank you so, so much for having me. I'm like low-key sad that it's over, even though we've been talking for like 2 hours. I'm like, no, really?
I'm so grateful that you enjoyed this time as much as I did.
I did.
It felt like a hug.
Yes, thank you so much.
You have reset me for today. I hope you have the best day ever.
What a compliment.
And you have to show Arun how you shotgun.
I'm going to go do it right now. I'm going to be like, and the baby's up, so I'm going to be like, watch how cool your mom is and your wife. Look upon me. I learned it.
Yes. Set them up as the audience.
I will. Incredible. Oh my gosh, Susie, thank you so much.
Thank you. Have the best day ever, Arielle.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh my God.